This is Legends on Board. Ordinary $100 million.
Are you a thief?
Yes, guys, you are welcome back to the most amazing show on TV, and this is Legends on Board. They say acting takes sheer dedication, strong will, and 100% of who you are. And today, I'm about to introduce to you my very handsome guest. He's intelligent, he's smart, the dexterity of his voice, but every time I hear, I know who he is. Let's not make noise, let's make welcome to Legends on Board, the handsome, charming, and woman pleaser, Ekpenyong-Bassey!
Swift. We've been having this shy dance for about 6-7 months now.
Oh, more time.
Yeah, I know. I couldn't wait to come into your trap.
Okay, so basically, let's meet you. We all know you as Bassey.
Plenty of names. There's a
yes.
large mix up in my name,
Yes.
but
So
I could explain that.
I want to know your real names. What were the names your parents gave you? Were they 16, 15? I want to know everything.
I wasn't really that conscious when they had the naming ceremony, but I've run through life with just a few.
Okay.
Okay, so my name is Ekpenyong. And my surname is Bassey. It's compound.
Yes, okay.
So when I grew into acting,
Okay.
because I had a little challenge with the lengthy nature of my name,
Yes.
I created Keppy.
Oh, Keppy was created.
Yeah, by me.
Okay.
And my happiness today is that in all of Cross River and all of Calabar, everybody by the name Ekpenyong, male and female, call themselves Keppy.
Wow,
So
yes,
that again, what that explains to us quite naturally is the fact that there's so much power with the medium. So that's it. Now, so that we met somehow. At least you know my name and you know the origins of Keppy.
Your name.
Yes.
So what was your pet name growing up?
Now I wouldn't remember because I had several pet names, you know,
Okay.
depending on the girl I was dating at the time.
Talking of from your parents when we graduate to girl.
No, you know, by the time Keppy came to stay, my folks began to call me Keppy. And I think generally became acceptable that my name was Keppy.
Okay, so I did a little bit of snooping. Found out your dad was a military man.
Yes.
Medical doctor.
My father was actually the first Nigerian doctor in the armed forces, the armed forces medical services. He set up the medical centers in all the arms, the Army, Air Force, and the Navy.
Brilliant.
Yes, and he was a doctor, yes. And he had me. I'm not a doctor.
So how was it growing up under him? Because forget the fact he was a doctor, he was a military man. We're not that they are rigid, they are strict. Yes.
He became a military man after he qualified as a doctor.
Okay.
He studied in the UK, studied in the UK. And he was convinced to join the army by, I remember that bit of his life. There's a guy called, may he still rest in peace, Brigadier Bassey, the very first Nigerian to be commissioned into the army. He actually convinced my father to join the army.
Wow.
He joined the army, but he was still very much of a civilian because in our every interaction, he was more of a father and friend than the military man. Yes.
Okay.
And my mother, too, was into, what's the word now? She was, I can't remember exactly how to couch it. Okay. She studied something in social sciences.
Sociology?
Not sociology. There's a special arm where people were trained to counsel people with challenges and stuff. So she was a counselor of some sort, and she worked in. She wasn't a psychologist. She worked in Case Western University in Cleveland, Ohio. Yeah.
Okay, so
they got married and they have us. There's quite a number of us.
Now, before you go to us, you know, a lot of other people in your industry came from rugged, rough streets. I snooped a little. You went to Corona.
Yes, I went to Corona School in
Child,
Victoria Island.
the
Yes.
Ajebote School.
No, at that time, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't say it was an Ajebota school per se. It was a school,
Yes,
and if you had the kind of orientation we had,
yeah.
we couldn't tell the difference
Okay.
one school from the other. All we knew was that this was the standard, and we went to that school.
Okay, so don't mind him. You went to an Ajebote school. So let's now move on from there. You went into the university.
Yes.
You studied linguistics.
In my first degree.
Yes, your
Yes.
first degree. And no, after snooping, your second degree, you did something in international relations and law.
No, I had my master's in international law and diplomacy.
So your second degree was what?
That's it.
That's the second degree.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Get out of here. I love you so much. I love you so much.
so at this point,
Yes.
international relations,
Before
law,
then,
linguistics,
I went to a school
School of
somewhere in the middle.
arts and science, something.
No, that was for my A levels.
A-levels?
Back in the days, we used to have A levels, so I went to
Okay.
Federal School of Arts and Science. But even then,
Before then.
there was still a school I attended.
What was that?
It's the Tade Ogidon Institute of Growing Actors.
You went there.
No, it wasn't formal. I just realized that my friend's older brother was inclined this way.
Okay.
And he thought of me as good enough to play a role
Wow.
because I was bigger. If you had snooped enough, you will find that I was the first ever Mr. Unical. So I'd always been involved in bodybuilding and stuff like that. So he needed to do this film, a TV movie, and he thought my size was good enough to
What's
play a
the
robber.
movie?
Boys Next Door, there was Shago and Rize who was there, and I'll find the picture one of these days to embarrass all of us. We're all not as big as we thought we were.
Send it to me again.
I will send it to you. So Tally was my first formal training on acting and anything to do with this level of creativity.
Okay.
The creative community. He was my foot in. He was my mentor and still is, you know, and a lot of me is because of him.
Wow.
Yes.
Oh, now I'm gonna cry.
No, don't cry. You need to meet him.
Okay.
You need to meet Tade. He has a way of being able to turn stones into actors.
I like that.
swear.
Stones into actors. Okay. So at this point, again, I'm going to push a little further.
Push.
What movie do you think that was that got you to your peak? Because you were growing. You were at your tipping point. What movie was that?
No, I'll tell you what it is.
Yes.
You know, back in the day when we started, I also worked with the NTA, so we did a lot of productions, a lot of
Okay.
telemovies back in the day.
Okay.
And then there was the most popular one at the time,
Yeah.
which was Ripples.
Okay.
Now, Ripples ran for 5 years on
Yes.
network,
Yes.
uninterrupted.
What was your character?
I would play the role of an airline captain, Captain Hassan Suleiman.
Ah!
I was on Ripples at a time when we had only one broadcast house, only NT in all of
Yes.
Africa, so everybody had to tune in.
And watch you.
So by the time we got onto movies, and by the way, I produced the second film in Nollywood. So by the time we got on what's it called, on movies, the visibility was a leverage. And then, you know, for some of us from back then, we were more into the craft rather than to the business. So we enjoyed the fact that we were working, we enjoyed the work. Even when we're not paid, we still found fulfillment in our smiles and the camaraderie around our colleagues and all of that. We invested heavily on improvements, so we had several workshops and we worked with several, should I say, invested directors who somehow guided us through parts, yes, and so on and so forth. And they failed to teach us that we had to learn to make money from this.
Okay, so they didn't teach you to make money.
They didn't
and
teach
they
you.
did not teach you that in the university.
And they don't even teach people in university how to make money, and that's
Yes.
a problem. But we still have, like, and we still today, I still think we have retained 80% of the love for the craft. You know what I mean? And I think it pays off in the end because what I have lost in terms of cash,
Yeah.
I have more than compensated in terms of goodwill. You know, you really don't want to know about it. I can't even begin to count. You know, when we as Christians, when we say count your blessings, name them one, I can't count.
Yes, I know. Like me, your life as your friend. Oh my God. One of the blessings.
Swift, Swift, I love you.
Oh my
Trust
God.
me. So
Okay,
that's it.
so now you talked about something that just caught me. You
Yes.
talked about producing the second film. That was something original sin.
Yes, the unforgiven
The
sin.
unforgiven sin.
Yes.
So who wrote that script? How did you decide to?
You know, I'll tell you, it was
Yes.
quite interesting, really.
Okay.
Because we're there thinking that, look at us, we're there, young boys, all of us, Fred Abata, Emmanuel Gugugwa, Obio Sotule, Mohammed Ali, Udo Silas, all of us had been thinking creatives. We always played creatives.
Okay.
And then one day, we wake up one day and there was living in bondage.
Yes.
So we actually beat ourselves stupid. We wondered, we queried, we questioned, we asked ourselves, why didn't we think of this?
Wow.
So as soon as we got ourselves together, we began to think up stories. And then we arrived at the Osuka system, which traditionally plagues Igbo land. And then we conducted wide researches. And then we had script conferences.
Wow.
And then all of us in bits contributed to the script writing
Okay.
of our very first attempt together, friends into business. You know, and by God's grace, you know how long this is? It's over 20 years right now.
Yes.
That same clique of friends are still friends today. You know, it is unusual,
Yeah.
but I think the bonding came from creativity and honesty.
Who was your lead role in that movie?
No, the lead role, we introduced Zach. That was Zach's first. We brought Zach into the
Yes.
industry on that job.
Because in his interview, he talked about it. I was
Yes,
waiting
I
for
know,
it.
no. Zach is a very honest, decent person.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, I was working with Bashir Topher at the time, and then he was sitting across my table. Ikenna Igwe, a colleague of ours, had brought him. And he says, I think, yeah, you guys want to show the film. This is my friend. By the time I spoke 2 minutes with Zach,
You knew he was.
no, I just knew I was going to learn from him.
Wow.
It was his first time on TV. But by the time I spoke with him, I called my colleagues. I said, we have our lead character. They said, why? I said, I don't know. There's something about him. He has sterling qualities. He speaks well. He's a gentleman. I'd never met anybody as nice and as humble as Zach
You were.
in all my life of rascality up to that point. And you know, by the time we talked through the concept, I mean, you know how it is. We were bantering and talking, and we somehow managed to slide into the story. He just became the character in front of me. I just saw him. I realized he had become the character, and he made. Honestly, I can't ever claim that we did that job alone, because people like Zach invested in blood for the job to become a success today. Matthias Obayagon directed it, you know, and it was unbelievable for all of us. We became one big family. We still are, you know. So I'm really excited that the industry has overtaken us.
Stop! Don't tell me to come down. Why?
Now, coming to Tears for Love.
Tears for Love.
That movie
Yes.
single-handedly
I
took
debated.
you, like, it was a movie like everybody saw you. You weren't hiding behind a uniform. You weren't hiding as a sub-lead. You were lead role. And
Yes.
you were so into the movie, like, I'm so sorry, I can't even remember your wife.
No,
I can't
you must
remember
remember my
who
wife.
she was.
Amazing, was amazing on that job.
Good. I know
As
she
a matter
was.
of
I know
fact-
she used to cry all the time.
As a matter of
remember
fact,
as a
I
child.
think because of her role,
Yes.
because of her character interpretation, I became acknowledged on the story, because you know how it was.
Yes.
I took out my vexation on her.
I don't understand.
So the viewership sympathized and empathized more with her.
And men could relate to you, because
No,
at that
they
point,
related to me, but they hated me
no,
like mad.
men could, let me tell you
No,
why.
men
At that point,
hated
there was
me.
a recession in Nigeria, and a lot of men were no more the breadwinners of their families, so they could understand what it meant for a man not to have a job.
I need you to understand the story. The way, if I recall, the story was this guy who was the breadwinner in his house, loving husband, lovely kids, a great family man, and there's an accident, he loses his sight, he's now dependent on his wife.
No, he first lost his job.
No, I'm telling you the way, okay, yes, he loses his job,
Wife
and
had
then,
to do a lot.
yes, to try and sustain him. But that wasn't, when you feel completely incapacitated. When you know there's really nothing you can do. It's like when you're 80 years old or 90.
Yes.
It's like when you're 80 years old or 90 and you have brittle bones, and then 1 2 year old slaps you. You know that if you punch back, your bones will break. That's how the guy felt at the time, because he depended largely on his wife, who herself, I think she stretched herself beyond sacrifices to ensure the husband was survived and had and managed to go through life. You know what I mean? The little twist was he was blind at some point.
He became blind.
And what's the story now?
Because the wife hit him, they were fighting, he was hitting her, she hit him, so he became blind. I remember that story, come on, I watched
But
that
then,
movie like a million times.
then he regained his
Like
sight.
the boss hit him, then he got
His
sight
sight back.
And he
So
found out she was about to sleep with his uncle for some surgery.
for money, for me.
Surgery, yes.
Yeah. And then the reason why I think everybody hated me at that time, and I still think they hated me, I don't think the men loved me for it either, was at the point where she was about to kill herself.
Yes, then he came up.
And I begged.
Yes, he lost
I'm
his
a,
wife.
I'm a real decent gentleman now. I tell you.
Fabulous movie. So,
Thank you.
how did you get the script to that movie?
It wasn't how we got the script to the story. It had been some story that had been stormed. There was Fred Amata in that sequence. There was Oprah Williams. It was his very first movie.
Okay.
Yes, and Chico Ejiro.
Wow.
Back in the day, we used to be
Brilliant
more
voice.
family.
Yes.
So you have an idea, we shred the story, and we make contributions, we invest somehow with experiences, and that's how we managed to get the story and get the story right. Now, the idea basically subsequently was to get the rights to prevent and try and realize the picture we wanted to put out there, and that's what happened.
Rumor has it that you were married before your current wife. Is that true?
I'd like to meet that me who got married. My present wife and I have been together for 28, 29 years, so do the maths. When did I get married to who, when, and how,
It was
who?
a village wife. Well, now I just want you to clear it out.
You know where this rumor started?
No.
I wish I'd come, if I'd known this was going to come up, I'd have come up with the picture.
Okay.
Many years ago,
Okay.
I had been a model on some bridal, I was the groom to a bride. We were modeling for some bridal fashion house and stuff like
Okay.
that. So the picture went
Viral.
then.
Viral.
Somehow,
these days,
yeah. So there's a large rumor, and sometimes they see my darling wife now, and they say to her, how do you manage with him? That, I used to know his first wife. I should say, oh, really? And he didn't tell me he was married before. And she'll laugh, and we'll go back to bed, and we'll laugh and laugh and laugh, because she knows me more than anybody else in this world.
Yes. Coming to that, how is it being married to an actor?
She's not an actor. She acts.
Yes. Come on now.
She acts. She acts, but she's not primarily an actor.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how is it being married to someone? Sometimes she's on set, sometimes you're on set, sometimes... Did it create more... Did it help the wedding? Do you feel it was one of the things that...
You mean the union?
Yes, the union made you people stronger, or did you feel...
No, I think what has really kept us going is the fact that, me, I was destined to leave by God's grace. I'm sure that if she hadn't come into my life at the time she did, I'd have died.
Aww, that's so sweet.
Yeah, because she managed to understand the peculiarities. I was a rascal. Yeah. Quite naturally, I was a rascal. Every young person who marries at 27, 28 naturally is a rascal. Yeah. So at that time, I was young. I was
Full of life. Lots
Full
of
of-
hot babes around.
I don't know whether it's a babe issue. It was the fact that there was the rascality.
Okay.
The invincibility of youth, where you feel you never die.
Aha!
Like riding bikes. I used to ride motorcycles from when I was 16. I stopped now, but I used to ride from like Lagos to Ife
Wow.
in 3 hours. I would run from leave around 9 p.m. and then get into Ife about midnight. But then there was no fear. That's why I said the invisibility of youth, but then she understood all of that. And then we became, in a really short time, became two peas in a pod. We're just identical. If she was here, you think you'll be talking. I mean, she probably would answer any question about me like that.
So sweet of you.
Get out of here.
So at this point, I'm about to put you in a hot seat. So this is the segment of the show.
Yeah.
We call it flirting, dating, or dissing. So I'm going to call names randomly, about 10 names. If you're going to like to date the person, be truthful now, all in your industry, you're going to say date. Someone you just want to flirt with, you don't say flirt. Or someone you want to diss, you just diss. Like, you don't want anything to do that.
Can I tell you one thing before we run into this game?
Let's go there.
You know, my old man was in the military.
Yeah.
And he was a medical doctor.
Your voice is stronger.
No, listen now, listen. And we used to be beer buddies as well. So we used to drive out and then we used to have the man-to-man talk. And then he used to advise me. He used to say, if you have to date any girl, make sure the girl is good enough to be your wife.
My goodness.
So what that did for the most part was to remove plenty of flirtation.
Okay.
Because I had to make sure that whoever it is I was stepping out with had to be good enough to be called my wife. So I hope that might help you shape or reshape your questions, but let's go there.
Nah. Don't be too, just clear your mind.
I've cleared my mind, I'm just worried about you.
Are you ready?
And I hope your name is part of the 10. So I can say flirt for the first time in my life.
Okay, guys, are you ready? I'm my hot seat. I'm going to call names that are going to shake you.
I know.
Are you ready now?
Yes.
Okay, so Beyonce.
Date.
Rihanna.
Oh, date.
Genevieve.
Date.
Omotola.
Let's call me my friends. Date.
Choma Chukubra.
I love her. I love all the names you call so.
Yes.
Date.
Iya Rainbow.
Date.
Shola Shobowale.
Oh, I love her. Date.
Swift.
Oh, damn, I've been waiting for this moment. Date.
Agatha Mata.
Oh, do you know how close I got that I have been? Date. Because, yeah, date.
Moabudu.
Date. You know why I'm saying date? Because we can run to town with semantics, and I can play with semantics. I can say date means going out. That's what it means.
At this point, I'm going to do this for you. Regularly, we do your top 10 favorite songs. I'm going to do 5 favorite songs for you, and I'm going to ask you for your 5 favorite actors in no particular order. So you're going to give me 5 songs and 5 favorite actors in no particular order.
That's simple for the songs, though.
Oh yeah, now.
Everything about Two-Face, every song he has made. Oh, good. So I have Righteous Man, all his songs.
Righteous man say, no, we can't take it no longer.
I have Bucci, all his songs. I've always loved Tiwa Savage.
49 sit.
Rugged Man.
Once again, it's me, the individual, running the game physical.
Okay, now 5 actors, favorite actors. They could be directors or favorite 5.
Tade Ogidon.
Oh.
Matthias Abahegbo. Fred Amata.
Aha.
Obi Osotule.
One more. No call any girl name, no like woman and be.
NY. My wife.
Can never call my name.
No, I do
I'm
love
not coming out to I cannot call my name so I can blow. Well, they say the road to success is never easy, and time flies when you are enjoying yourself. So guess what? We've just come to the end of this fabulous episode of Legends on Board. I have had tears in my eyes, I have laughed, I've been excited, and I hope you had a fabulous time. Just in case there's anything you don't like about the show, feel free to tell us. Hit us up on our social media platforms at Rave TV channel. And of course, Legends on Board, we have our own page now. And Legends on Board, just tell us this is what I like, this is what I don't like. And you can watch this episode again and again and again. YouTube has you covered. Just go to Rave TV on YouTube. click playlist, Legends on Board, gang gang. We'll give it to you live and direct, guys.
And if I can throw in anything here,
Yes,
I think you're a very wonderful person, Swift.
Now I'm gonna cry.
I think you're tenacious. You know, I think you're patient. I think you're warm. You know, you made this discussion a lot easier. You know, I'm sure a lot more people will come on your show than any other person. But there's something about you that you exude, you know, that's unbelievable. You're a great person.
Oh, guys, you're gonna come make me cry.
No, this is for real. This is for real. Honestly. Yeah. I'm glad I came finally.
Thank you so much.